Welcome. We're excited to have you today. I don't think, other than Coffee Chat with the Chair, we've really seen much of anybody since YP Week, so it's exciting to have you. And I don't know if we have any My Turns on or not, but if we do, welcome. We're really excited to bring Hey Brandon Wake Up with us today. We're really excited to share his story, or actually hear some of his story because we haven't heard all of it, with you today. And I think Kaylee is going to hit us off with our icebreaker today.
Well, hello, everyone. It is good to see you all. It definitely has been a while. We'll start off with an icebreaker, and I'll call you all out by your first name or whatever is on Zoom, just so we don't have too much talking over each other. But for those of you who are on TikTok, and even shamelessly, it's okay, I am. What is your favorite TikTok that you've seen? If it's just a sound that you've heard, or a dance, or just a trend, what is your favorite? And Brandon, we'll start with you.
Oh my God, how could I choose just one, man? I would say there is. Oh my God, I want to open up the app now and look through all of my favorites. That's no, I think there's a lot of really good trends that I've been seeing, but I think one that's been blowing up has been, oh God, I don't know. Come back to me. Okay. So I can have a good one.
All right. Ryan.
Hey guys. Yeah, I'm
first.
Pardon me. Ryan Payton is my name. Work for Dynamic Fusion Inc. I just want to say, hey Kayla, I haven't seen you in a while. How's Cole doing? Good. I didn't know you were in this, but yeah. Favorite TikTok videos? I don't know. I kind of just is almost the same as just watching YouTube for me. It's just quick, short videos. Anything funny, I just like and enjoy.
Awesome.
Okay, I've got my favorite. That the time warp scan one has been fantastic lately, and seeing what everyone's been doing with the time warp that either goes like this or the one that comes down like this.
That's cool. Yes, like when they try to be horses and then they awkwardly try to do something.
Yeah, or the Tim Burton faces.
Yeah.
But there's I think endless opportunities that you can do with the slow face scan. So that's been a good one. It took me a second to get there.
Kyle, you're next on my screen.
All right. Hey, gosh, to be honest with you, I just downloaded TikTok maybe a week ago and I put in the chat that time has no meaning when you're on TikTok. So I managed to waste away 4 hours just getting acclimated to the app. So I don't know that I have a favorite video or a favorite series yet, but yeah, I'm learning.
Shay, what about you?
So too many to name, but I'm going to throw one in the chat here because it's football season again. And so I have an old one from CBS Sports that they put together a compilation of what they call Sean McVay's Get Back Coach. And so there's a link to one of my all-time favorites. It's got a little salsa music in the background. It makes it look like a dance move. But their team literally pays somebody to pull him back off the sideline constantly. So hashtag goals.
Amazing.
It's my new career path option. So if I leave IT, you're going to see me on the sideline somewhere, and my only job is to yank somebody back off the field when they're not supposed to be there.
I think you're perfect for that job. I will write a recommendation for you.
I would like to get a headset though. That guy doesn't seem to be very important without it. He's pretty good at just grabbing on and pulling, but I think he should have some kind of headset.
Agree. Is it Megan or do you pronounce it Megan?
It's Megan.
Okay, just making sure.
Yeah, no, you're good. My favorite has to do with any type of cooking, if it's a recipe or showing how to make something. and I love it's at Cooking with Linda. I think she's like a grandma and she does like college after school snacks and stuff like that. I don't know, they're really fun.
Adorable.
Yeah.
All right, Nikki, you're on my screen.
Hello. Okay, my favorites, well, I have two. They're so kind of boring. I'm such a nerd. Okay, so we have adopted 2 rescue dogs since quarantine started. So my husband and I play like TikTok ping pong, sending back and forth the videos of the dogs with Siri's voice over them saying the awful things they've done that day. And so that's like our family recreation time now, is talking about how awful dogs are. But I also like, what is her name? Linda Dong, the ones where she goes, "Hello, my friends," and like says something hilarious. I love her. I want to be her when I grow up. So that's my goals.
Love it. Bree?
So I actually don't have TikTok, but whenever I go back home, I do have a 16-year-old sister. And so in order for her to think I'm cool, I learned a TikTok with her. So otherwise, I know nothing about TikTok.
Jamanda?
I have pizza in my mouth. Hey guys, what's up? So for TikToks, I have a 12-year-old daughter who sends me a lot that she wants me to watch. But for myself, I watch hers. And then I watch a lot of like home renovation stuff because I love watching the time lapse or watching part 1, part 2, those. And then anything Broadway or musical related, I like to watch a lot of those because I'm a big fan. And it's now it's Casey's Pizza. It's a DiGiorno. I made it in the toaster oven.
That's good crappy pizza.
It is. Oh my gosh.
I would also like to ask, is Faye joining us today?
Faye is in the other room. I've asked her to join, and for some reason she was like, "No, Mom." So
Okay. Well,
she's judging me from the other room. It's fine. She's got schoolwork to do or whatever.
You might ask her if she wants to send you her favorite TikTok, because now I'm curious.
Okay, I will do that, and then I'll share it somehow.
Throw it in the chat.
We'll do.
Mairead, you're next on my screen.
We might come back
Can come back to her. Bryce, are you there?
I am, but like Bree, I do not have TikTok, so I'm here to learn more.
Amazing. And Jordan, you're next. What is your favorite TikTok?
So yeah, I am also, I think, along with a lot of other folks, I do not have a TikTok account, so I don't know if I actually have a favorite TikTok. My wife, who is an elementary school teacher, does have TikTok because she'll hear her students referencing several TikTok videos. And I must say, once I get done with my fall classes for my doctoral program, my plans are to download the app because I feel like 2020 has been such a crazy and almost like a depressing year almost. And it sounds like, and in TikTok, it has like all these great videos. I think one was, it was the guy who had like, I think it was like a punch, or maybe it was like the Ocean Spray drink. And he was on the skateboard listening to Fleetwood Mac. To me, I think to me, that's art. So I think it's definitely on my radar to download TikTok once I get a few things kind of checked off my box, because I think I just need some levity and funny humor to help me get through the remainder of 2020.
Agreed. Yes,
it's the serotonin boost I think that everybody needs this year.
It's true. It's free. It's free serotonin. And then Kayla.
Okay, so you guys all know me. So I have spent time does not matter on TikTok at night when you're waiting for your kids to go to sleep. So I know far too many of them. But I will have to say I really love the pranks. I love the guy that pretends that he got hit with a golf ball and is laying in the middle of his yard. And more recently, I have really loved the husband pranks where they put the speaker inside their kitchen cabinet and then ask their husband to get them a glass of water. and watch their husband like fly out of the room or fall on the floor. Hilarious. I haven't quite done it yet. Cole's probably not ready for any of that yet, but I really enjoy those. Kaylee knows because I send her a ridiculous amount of TikTok. Well, we send them back and forth. But the whole reason that we wanted to bring Brandon here today, well, it was around the time of the golf tournament. We were actually, a lot of people brought it to my attention on the golf tournament. They were like, hey, so somebody on TikTok's in Lincoln. And Kaylee and I were talking about it, and it was so much fun, Brandon. I don't know how many times I watched your TikTok, and it was hilarious. And so Kaylee and I got to talking, and we thought we have to talk to him. We have to talk to him about his story. And so while he met with Brooke and Kaylee and I, we heard a little bit about his story and said, we have to share this with you guys. So I'm really excited to kind of introduce you. I guess he's already been part of the conversation, but Brandon, I'm going to kick it off to you, and we can hear your story.
Awesome. Thank you for that introduction. And let me go ahead and share my screen. And I want to, while I do that, thank the Lincoln Young Professionals group. Thank you guys for your time today, for joining and hanging out with us. Let me go ahead and share this. So just a little bit of a quick background about me. I'm actually from the East Coast originally. And today we're going to talk, I want to share part of the reason why I think that I've got some stuff to share with you guys. The reason why I was in Lincoln, I was on a long camper van road trip throughout the United States. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how that road trip developed, and then my experience when I actually got to Nebraska and in Lincoln, and then we could talk a little bit more about TikTok as well and some of the trends and things that I've noticed on there. But I grew up in New Jersey and Baltimore, so I kind of spent all of my time on the East Coast, and then last year I actually moved over to the West Coast. So most of my experiences has kind of been on either coast. For work, I normally work in live events. I do a lot of conventions and meetings and those types of things. Obviously this year, that has not been the best industry to be in. So I am currently furloughed. I've been furloughed since June, like a lot of people in my industry. But with that type of background, it afforded me a lot of domestic travel for work. I was constantly going mostly domestically, a little bit internationally. But I started to, right out of college, get a really, I was a frequent traveler. I got a really big feel for traveling, and I realized how much I really enjoyed it and appreciated it. But I was kind of just flying into different cities, and I would explore the immediate area around those cities, and then I would leave and go back. And so recently I've been thinking that I really wanted to do a road trip and see a lot more of the country. And that sort of perfectly matched up with getting furloughed. So pretty quickly, I kind of put the pieces together and realized that this would be a really good opportunity to do something productive with my furlough. I have been waiting to go back. I really want to go back and continue to work in live events. So I'm sort of just biding my time and wanted to be a little productive with it. I also never really did too many road trips growing up as a kid. So I have a whole new appreciation for just getting in a car and driving, or getting in a camper van and going somewhere. And I wish I had done more of it growing up, because there's just so much to explore. There's so many fun things. So my first little taste of this was actually when I moved across country. I was living in Philadelphia and I moved to San Francisco, and I did a month-long road trip just to kind of take my time while I got to the new coast. But I was just in the car, and I had plotted like different hotels to stay at. So it was a very structured trip. And I got a feel for it. I enjoyed it, but I thought that there was a better way to do it. So once I got furloughed in June, I decided, all right, I'm going to set aside some time and I'm going to hit the road. So I put aside about 6 weeks and decided that the best way for me to experience this and to also be safe during COVID was to rent a van and to start getting into the van life movement. Now, mine was just a temporary experience. I think coming out the other side of it, I could definitely, I think in the future, I would definitely want to get a van and convert it and spend a lot more time in it. I don't know that I'm at that point right now, because that's a pretty big step, but this was sort of my first little taste in it. So I rented a self-sufficient van that had a bed and a little kitchen. And I settled on that was going to be my vehicle that was going to take me around. So I had my time frame and I had the vehicle that I was going to be taking. I knew I had to start and end up in San Francisco. So I kind of looked at the map and said, well, where do I want to go? How do I want to approach this? What can I do in 6 weeks? You know, how far can I get? I have a goal of wanting to visit all 50 states. And before this trip, I think I was at like 41 or 42. And they were kind of all spread out. I wanted to go to Montana, North Dakota, Kentucky, New Mexico. And so I said, how can I fit this into a 6-week trip? And sort of made my route based off of that. So planning for a 6-week road trip was a little more complicated than I thought, because I wanted to know where, like, the general route that I was going to be taking, but I also wanted to give myself some flexibility. So I built in some buffer days there. And what I'll talk about in a second is part of the beauty of when you're living in a van or out of the RV that you're driving in. You just have all this flexibility. You don't have a hotel that you need to go and check into. So I had sort of a loose structure to the trip, I would say. I kind of knew the national parks, the state parks I wanted to hit, the states that I wanted to go to, and formed an outline, and then tried to make a budget, which I thought I was pretty on the nose with my budget. It was completely off. I thought I knew how much gas it would take to get around, and I did not calculate that correctly. So I would say one of my key takeaways is to pay a little more attention to gas prices around the country, and figure that I'd like doubled my gas budget, which I now I know moving forward. But really, my main goal from the trip was I wanted to cover a lot of ground, but I didn't want to rush through anything. I wanted to make sure that I was taking the time to appreciate what I was driving through. Again, the point of this, I've always been able to just get on a plane and fly to, Oklahoma City or Bismarck or something. But by driving between those cities, there was a lot more that I was going to be seeing. And I wanted to make sure I was focusing on appreciating that, whatever that might mean. So I set out, I went on this journey. It was definitely an incredible experience. One of my favorite spots that I have pictured here was White Sands, New Mexico, which, if you don't know about it or you haven't put it on your travel list, you absolutely have to. It's this like white sand dune desert in the middle of New Mexico. It's unlike anything else I've seen in the US. There's a couple other places in the US where there's like big sand dunes that you can actually hike through. But this really felt like the Sahara. The sand was just like so white, and you could just kind of go barefoot hiking through the dunes. It was awesome. So White Sands definitely add to your list. But ultimately, just to kind of go through some of the things that I learned as I was driving around, some of the big takeaways that I found out, the benefit about this type of trip. Well, first of all, in a COVID world, part of the reason why I was doing it this way was that it was very self-contained. So I really wasn't, I wanted to make sure I was being responsible while I was doing this. I was trying to be respectful and responsible. So I really didn't interact with anybody. I kind of went to, for the most part, I was staying in campsites. I was doing almost exclusively things that were outside. So I was hiking. I was, the only places I would really go in would be to like stock up on food again or to get gas. And I was like, I had latex gloves with me for the gas pump, and I had hand sanitizer and masks and stuff. So I was trying to be very cautious. I also was getting, at CVS's now, you can just get COVID tests through the drive-thru. So I was getting weekly COVID tests, not for my own health really, but just to make sure I wasn't, being a spreader as I went around. So I just want to point that out, that this type of trip right now is really popular because it fits nicely into the pandemic world that we're in. Aside from that though, the freedom of schedule was fantastic. I'm sure other people, as you've gone on big, if you've done a big road trip before, you'll understand this, but most of my trips I've ever taken are very structured. There's a certain time where you have to be a certain place to catch a flight or to go back. And this, you really could just kind of have a very spontaneous day. So you kind of have a loose structure. All right, I want to get 2 hours further in the day. I tried to never really plan for more than 4 hours of driving in a day. So it left a lot of open time. And if there was something interesting that I saw, if I came across a cool park or a hike, or I saw something in the distance that I wanted to check out, I was able to do that. Or if I found a really great spot, I could just stop and have lunch there. So that was a really, I hadn't had an experience like that before. And I think that kind of leads to the next part where you really got to be a part of the local community. I tried to skip the interstate when I could, especially coming down back to California. I tried to follow actual Route 66 instead of just taking like the interstate. And there's just so much more that you see. You know, you're driving through towns that you hadn't heard of, or you know, seeing old landmarks and historical things that you would have never really experienced. And I had a couple of those moments where you're just in a random town and you're like, oh, this place is awesome. Like, it's got this old railroad and all these old antique shops and stuff. And I would have, you know, there were definitely palpable moments where I was like, I would not have ever found this place had I been flying into a nearby city. I also continued to, the whole time when I was in a gas, for me, it was mostly gas stations, but I think you could apply this outside of, you know, that type of environment. I was asking locals. So if you go into a local record store or a local gift shop or something, I would be asking them like, hey, is there any good hikes around here? Or do you know of a cool spot? A quick little anecdote with that. When I was in Carson City, I did exactly this. I went into a coffee shop and asked a barista if there were any cool spots around Lake Tahoe. And she told me about this place called Secret Cove. And she spoke of these crystal blue waters that were like the Caribbean, and these big round boulders that you could see all the way down to the bottom. And she's like, but it's a hard hike. You know, it takes about 30 minutes to get down there. It's not very heavily trafficked. So I followed her advice and I figured out how to get down there. And it really was an incredible sight to be seen. And I had my camera out and I was kind of panning over this beautiful, like, little crystal blue lagoon. What she didn't tell me is that it was a nude beach. So as I panned the camera over to the shoreline, all of the people were there sunbathing, which was a shock that even existed. But I felt like that would have been like a key piece of information to keep in the details when you're telling somebody about it. But it just added to the experience of like, this is a really cool spot. Like, clearly only the locals know about this. And I think by taking the time to ask people like that, they love to share. And this will come up a little bit later too when we start talking about TikTok, but people get really excited when you ask them that question and they want to share more. And then obviously the outdoors, you know, a van is obviously you're doing a lot of things outdoors. You're staying in campsites and such, but the van is a very small space. So you really can't, it's hard to spend a lot of time hanging out in there. You know, if you're at home, it's easy to come home and just kind of, I do this all the time, fall into the couch and watch TV. In a van, you know, it's so different that you're kind of forced to spend a little more time outside and walk down to the river and maybe do the first mile of a hike that's at your campsite. So there was just way more opportunities like that I really, really appreciated. Again, especially during this time when there isn't much to do other than be outside. So ultimately, I covered about 8,000 miles in 6 weeks. I hit 20 states. I wanted to do a couple more. I still have Alabama on my list of places I haven't been to, and I just couldn't make it there. I tried, but there was a hurricane, and I just couldn't get there when I wanted to. But that's kind of the loose outline of where I went, mostly formulated by states I wanted to go to. And I did see a couple of friends in a couple key places that kind of anchored the trip. But one of the great things, of course, and the reason why I'm talking to you guys is that this took me through Nebraska. So I had been to Nebraska on that, the trip out west I had mentioned previously. I drove through Scottsbluff and saw Chimney Rock, which I thought was kind of a cool symbolic thing to see on my trip out west. But I hadn't been to the eastern part of the state. And I had been looking for a route to get from basically the Dakotas further south, and thought it would be cool to go through all of the different state capitals. So ultimately what I ended up doing when I was in Nebraska, I'll talk a little bit more about Manoe, but for those I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, it is the town that has a population of 1. And it is in the northern part of the state. It's also right next to Niobrara, which I think I'm saying correctly, Niobrara State Park, which was incredible. It's on the confluence of the Niobrara and the Missouri rivers, and there's lots of great hikes there. It's really peaceful. There's like cabins you can rent to. And there's horseback riding, which I didn't get to do. They didn't have it because of COVID, but I really wanted to do the horseback riding there. And then, of course, I came to Lincoln and spent a little time there and tried some of your food. So I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. But just to go back to Manoa for a minute. So this is in the border of Nebraska and South Dakota. And I'm a little bit of a geography nerd, and this has been on my list since I was a kid. And if you might have heard of this before, because the single resident is Elsie there. I have a picture of her there. And she has been, the town used to be bigger back in the day, and it ultimately came down to people kept moving out and going to bigger cities. And it ultimately came down to Elsie and her husband. Her husband passed away in 2004. And Elsie has remained the sole resident since then. She is the mayor. She runs the post office. She runs the local tavern. And she is also a minor local celebrity, I would say. She has been in like credit card commercials. She was in a Super Bowl commercial. She has like Coca-Cola sent her all this stuff that she has on her wall. And she's just a lovely lady who cares very much about her tavern and is still going strong in she must be in her late 80s at this point. And so she is an inspiration for everybody. Not only for that, but honestly, it's so cool that she has, the reason why I really liked it is that she has stayed in this town and she created her own little world and her own happy environment. And she was able to do that in a town of one. And I think it's just kind of an inspiration that you can find and make your own happiness wherever. And so it was just really cool to see that in her and to see her pride of the pride that she had for what she had created. So I would say if you're on a road trip at any point through the state or you're going up north, definitely add it to your list. She welcomes visitors. You can definitely stop in the tavern. They're not open on Mondays though, as I found out. She needs a day off, I guess. And so then after that, I came down into Lincoln. And of course I saw the state capitol. I was a little excited, again, the geography nerd in me, to go to, I was in Bismarck, Pierre, Topeka, and Lincoln. All within the span of a couple of days. So I was really excited about that. But what makes Lincoln stand apart to me is that it is way better than any of the cities that I just mentioned. And I'm not just saying that because I'm talking to you guys. It really blew me away. The Haymarket district, that whole area it was so cool. And I was there on like a rainy weekday during the pandemic. And I had a great time walking around and seeing stores. I went to Laszlo's. I don't know if that was the right choice. If I only had one meal to have in the area, I was trying to figure out what would be best, but that's what I ended up settling on. And it was fantastic. But I can't imagine going there on, not during COVID, but on like a Saturday night or like after a football game or something. You guys have something really great there. It seemed like a really fun place. Everybody I met and everyone I talked to was incredibly friendly. Everybody seemed to be very proud of their town. And if I had to compare it to one other place, to me, it seemed pretty close to Madison, Wisconsin. I don't know if anyone has any familiarity. Madison is also the capital of Wisconsin. It's a mid-sized city. And it's kind of a college town. It sort of had the same feel, and both of them really blew me away. I think I'm have more of an affinity towards mid-sized cities. I currently live in San Francisco, and it's just way too big a lot of the times, and it's very frustrating. And so I think more the size of like Baltimore or Pittsburgh or like Lincoln, it's the right size. You get a city feel, but it's not too much. I also, like I said at the beginning, I had a friend who had lived in Lincoln briefly for a few months. And so she was like, there's two things that you have to do when you go to Lincoln. You have to get coffee from the mill and you have to try a runza. I was like, what is that? I have never heard of something like that. So obviously I got coffee from the mill because I'm a coffee addict. But the reason why I am talking with you all is because I tried, well, there's two things that really I was blown away by. The first was Casey's, which I had never heard of. And maybe that's just, having only lived on one coast or the other, but I'd never come across it. And I remember the first time I actually went in, I asked the person, I was like, is this a chain or is this the only one? Like, and she's like, oh no, sweetie, it's a chain. Like they're all over the place. So Casey's was fantastic. And I thought Casey's was fantastic before I even realized that it's really a pizza place that sells gas. I thought that the iced coffee there was fantastic. And then of course I try to run that. So for those, are you guys okay if I play this? Is that cool? Okay.
I'm in Lincoln, Nebraska for the first time, and what in the Cornhusking fuck is going on with your stores? They're incredible. I just had a Runza for the first time. What the hell was that magic? And I've gone to Casey's like 6 times for the iced coffee. This nectar of the gods shit, right?
So that, excuse the profanities, I swear a lot, but that sentiment I still carry to this day. I was just really impressed. Especially having gone through other states I wasn't as familiar with, going through Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota. I wasn't coming across anything like this. And then I hit Nebraska, and it's like this jewel of all these fun things that I had never heard of and that everybody had so much pride for. People, I think the reason why this kind of blew up is people are like, yes, somebody's talking about this great stuff. It's a secret. I'm on to you guys. You guys are keeping secrets from the rest of the country about, I was like, why are these chains not elsewhere? I don't understand. So that obviously leads to the third portion of what I wanted to talk about, which was some of the things I found on TikTok. Outside of just that video, I had noticed that a lot of the content I was posting when I would be talking about something that that invokes the sense of pride in people that are from that area, that's what started to do really well. And I think I have a little bit of a marketing background, and I think that you can kind of, it's an interesting strategy to approach this with, because TikTok is really new and people are still trying to figure it out. But I noticed that by finding that, it was mostly restaurants, but also sometimes hikes or local monuments or historic areas that people were really excited about, by talking about it and showcasing it and giving some honest feedback about it with a little bit of enthusiasm, it would do really well in that area. I've noticed as I was driving around, I think one of the things that TikTok grabs about you, obviously, is your geographic location. And that's one of the few things that they know about you. And so when you're on your For You page and they're pushing that algorithm at you, I think they're obviously using where you are. And I would notice that as I would drive around, I would be seeing TikToks locally to the area that I was in. And I think that that's one of the routes to success that they developed in that algorithm. The algorithm, I think, is pretty confusing, and I don't think anybody has really figured out what can actually get onto the For You page. But that, I think, might be something that that has been working pretty well. Especially for me, it was always like the little hole in the wall restaurants. I got a lot of enjoyment out of this because I started to try some really amazing food in places. So I would ask people, all right, this is where I'm going next. Where should I eat in Albuquerque? And then there would be just this out of the way little place that I would have never found otherwise. And it would have just the best food. Like, I got one of the best hamburgers I've ever had from like a place in Arkansas that was on the side of the highway that was like a rundown little shack. I don't know. People just know where you got to just trust it when people tell you to do something like that. And so I had a lot of great food experiences through what people recommended. I think for anybody that's interested in starting to share on TikTok, I know we have varying, people said some people don't have it, some people use it a lot. Some of the things that, again, just a little bit from like a marketing perspective that I've realized, you can start to really develop a brand on TikTok. They have something called the Creator Fund now. So if you have a certain level of followers, you can, TikTok has put aside, I don't know, like $2 billion or something. And every day, depending on the number of views you get, you can earn income from that Creator Fund. It's really not a lot unless you are like one of the top TikTok creators. I would compare it probably more to what you would get on YouTube, which again isn't a whole lot. And then you can also go live and people can send you gifts like 50 cents or $2 or something on there. There's like a little way to do that. For me, what I found worked really well. Like I said before, I'm a coffee addict. That's part of the reason why I'm Hey Brandon Wake Up, because I am usually not awake before noon. And it was kind of just been a running joke with people in my life. They're always just like, you have some more coffee and wake the hell up. So there's a website or an app called Buy Me Coffee, and it's kind of a fun way for people to contribute to your travels. Again, being someone that's furloughed, I kind of use that as a way for people to be able to engage and send a couple bucks for coffee, which worked out pretty well as well. So just to kind of wrap up, and we can kind of get to some questions and open up the conversation. I know it sounds kind of cheesy, but, and I know not everyone has, you know, a blank slate of time in front of them, but if there is something that you're wanting to do in terms of travel, I would say just to do it and not to wait, especially once we get back to normal. If you have that destination that you have pinned up on your board, and you're dreaming about going to, you know, it's time to do it for sure. I think that the experiences you get from travel and seeing, different locales is just something that can't be replicated in any other way. Yeah. So hopefully that is a good takeaway. And then of course, obviously, try the local recommendations. Whenever people point you somewhere to try it, it actually started, the Runza, I would say, had me start thinking about all of these like fast food chains that I had never really tried before. And I feel like I'm on a mission now to like find new fast food chains. Like in California, we have something called Jollibee, which I had never heard of until I lived here. And it is Filipino food. They're all over California. There's hundreds of locations. It's just like Runza. Like it's something that's just in California and they're super popular. And I've never had it. So now I'm like setting out, like I have a list of like places like that and I am ticking off that I need to try because I feel like I'm just missing out. So yeah, that's my overview. It was a really interesting 6 weeks and I've learned a lot and I'm still kind of going through. The whole time I was out on the road, I was recording with the hopes of kind of putting some stuff up on YouTube to share with people. And so I'm still going through all of that footage and reliving a lot of it. And so it's been a fantastic experience. And I'm glad that if nothing else, it allowed me to meet you guys and chat a little bit with you. So I think maybe now, do we want to open it up to a group conversation?
Thank you so much for sharing that, Brandon. And yeah, we'll take it back to the group. If you guys want to throw any questions in the chat, or I think we're a small enough group, if you even want to unmute yourself, that's fine. If anybody has any questions.
I'll go ahead and start if it's okay. I would rather just say it instead of typing just because I'm a PEC typer, which takes me forever to type in a question. But this is a really great, Brandon. So one, thank you for sharing your story. Two, so for example, and for context, I've lived in Nebraska my entire life. So all I've known is like, however, maybe we're triple or quadruple landlocked as a state. I mean, when you really look at it, I mean, we are far from water when you think about it. So in this journey, when you started it, obviously you kind of mentioned like, you know, your preparation for it, and this is something you've always done. Was there like a moment that like you I don't want to say it was like a wisdom moment or something that you learned, but was there something that you gained from this experience that maybe you weren't anticipating in terms of like an outlook on life, or just maybe something that in terms of something that changed maybe your perspective from this experience?
Yeah, I thought for a second you were going to ask, did you have one of those like, oh shit moments where you were like, what am I doing? Because I definitely...
Well, I'm sure you probably had that too, right?
Definitely the first day or two, like when I first picked up this like big hunky van, I was like, what am I doing with this? But no, on the other side of it, there's a couple of things I think big takeaways I took out of it. Our country is geographically is incredible. There is just so many different environments. I mean, in just this trip alone, I feel like I saw more climates than I had seen the past like 5 years combined, like being up in the mountains all the way down to the desert. There's just so much to explore, especially this side, like the side of the Mississippi that we're all on. Like I can tell you the East Coast is unilaterally, it's pretty similar. It's just forest. Like it's flat, there's beaches and forests. But on this side, there's just so much more that I had known about, but it really made me want to, like I came back, like I said, I want to, as a hobby now, get a van, convert it. And that's how I want to spend a lot more of my free time and my vacations. Prior to this, I think a fun vacation to me was like going to a beach somewhere and relaxing. And that had been like a lot of that was my goal when it came to a vacation. And I think that it's changed my impression of a vacation or time off or what you can really do to get out there and explore. And that you don't need to go jump on a plane and go that far to experience it. I don't know. I just had a much greater appreciation. And again, maybe it's because I've spent time just on the coast, more time on the coast than anything else, but I had a huge appreciation for like the national parks and how much there is to do without having to leave the country's borders. Does that answer your question? That was more of a superficial thing that I realized.
No, that was good. And then maybe my follow-up for that would be like, yeah, so how many times did you have like kind of like an oh shit moment of like, what the heck am I doing? Like, can I pull this off?
Definitely like the day before I left, the day I left, and then the first night. Because I think one thing I neglected to mention is I also have no camping background. I've never been camping in my entire life. I've never slept in a tent. And so the van in my mind felt like a safe, like there's amenities in there. There's like a sink and a refrigerator and stuff, but it's camping essentially. Like, especially when you're not plugged into any power source and you're just relying on propane. So that very first night I was sort of like, out in the pitch black darkness, there's nobody else around, and I'm trying to like turn the propane on outside of the tank, or the outside of the van, and I had one of those moments of like, why am I doing this? But it ultimately, it was definitely all worth it. There was a couple times I had a few days of van trouble where I had to take it into a mechanic too. But I expected that. It all kind of comes with the territory. I also thought that I would get very fatigued with driving and moving to a new location every day. And after 42 days of it, I didn't at all. And that might've just been me and what I was trying to get out of it, but I could have gone for another 6 weeks, I think.
Well, we've got a few questions in the chat. We'll start with Shay. He said, I keep hearing creators talk about leaving the TikTok Creators Fund because they think the algorithm was decreasing their views and keeping them off the For You page. Any thoughts on your experience?
I've heard that as well. I definitely think I've tried to figure out, I don't know if they keep changing the algorithm or what, but like I thought I had it figured out that there was like a ratio where if you get a certain number of views to a ratio of likes to views early on, that it would click something and it would trigger success. But that's not true anymore. Like it's just totally random what comes out. I do think that because it is related to money, I don't think that I think they're trying to spread the love as much as possible. So I think that if you have a fair amount of success and you've gotten a certain amount from the Creator Fund, I could see how people would say that they switch it around. There very well could be some truth in that. I mean, we only have our own experiences to go off of, but when you start to hear a lot of people say the same thing, it's interesting. No app has really ever done something like that before either. So they kind of get to make up their own rules, I guess.
Yeah. All right, next, Bree wants to know about your van. Did you rent the van? Where did you rent the van from? Or did you fix one up?
I did rent the van to start, just because I didn't really have any experience with this. I looked around very briefly when I first decided I wanted to do this to see if I could, the cost of getting a van. But I live in an apartment in San Francisco, so there's nowhere for me to put it, even if I had one. So I ended up, there's a couple different companies that do this. They have varying degrees of amenities that come with the van, all the way from like a full converted Sprinter van that has a bathroom and a shower and like 2 beds, and it's like a really nice like RV style Sprinter van, all the way down to, there was a company that was just a converted minivan, where they just have like a normal minivan that they just put a bed in the back and convert it a little bit. So you have a range of options. I went with one that was a converted cargo van. So there was a little more, they had attached a hood to it so you could actually stand up on the inside. And like I said, it had propane and a 14-gallon water tank. It had solar panels so that if I wasn't hooked up to power, I was able to power the refrigerator, the interior lights. I could charge my computer and my phone. Those things were important to me. The company was called Travelers Auto Barn, but I believe they only rent out of California and Las Vegas. And you have to return where you pick it up. But there are companies where you can drive it one way. There's definitely companies where you can do like a New York to LA type of trip and leave the van in LA. So I would say that there is an option out there, especially these types of companies are sort of exploding. There's a little bit of a bubble for the van life movement, I think. So there's definitely some options if you're looking into something like this. The one benefit I will say, sorry, just for a van over an RV, if the size basically, with RVs, there are limitations to where you can park them, what roads you can drive down with them, what campsites you can stay with. With the van, you can go pretty much everywhere. My van fit into like a normal parking spot. Like I parallel parked it. So that was a huge benefit.
All right. Ryan wants to know, what was your least favorite place that you visited?
I'm going to say there were a couple that sort of fell below what I would have expected. Hot Springs, Arkansas. I don't know if anyone has been there. It is a national park. So it's the smallest national park. It's a really, I think I might have just misunderstood what I was getting into. It's a town that is also a national park. There's like parts of the town that are carved out to be the national park. And it's really just more of a historic town than anything else. There's not so many things that you would find in other national parks. There's not really like hikes or things to do like that. It's just sort of walking through the town, and it's a very touristy town that has like, a wax museum and stuff like that. So it just wasn't, I kind of went a little out of the way to see it. I don't know that I would have done that again. But if you're trying to go to all the national parks, you got to hit it up.
Well, I know in our conversation. Oh, Jordan, go ahead.
So another question. Obviously, so you were able to do this, I think, obviously when it was warm out, it was better weather. Was this something that you would consider doing again if you could and had the resources like during the winter months? Because I know like I'm sure there are certain pockets in the country that like have great things going on around the holiday season and stuff like that, maybe that we don't even know about. Is that something that you would consider in the future?
Probably not during the winter months, but that's just a personal preference. I'm more of a warm weather. Actually, before everybody jumped on it, I said that if I never saw it snow again, I would be happy. I'm in the minority for that. I'm definitely so for me, I think I would probably try to avoid the colder weather, but you could totally do this in the warmer months or in the colder months. Staying in the van would be a little bit trickier because you got to make sure you have the right van that can supply heat. There were definitely some nights when I was up in the mountains where it dropped into the 30s, and if I wasn't hooked up to a power source, I couldn't run a space heater, and so it was freezing. So I would say there are ways around that. You just have to have the right materials, the right van. The solar panels have to support something like a space heater. But if you have that, you could definitely go through the mountains or do like a skiing trip or, like you said, around the holidays, certain towns become these awesome little magical places with outdoor markets and stuff that you can go through. That would be really cool. I think I would do this again if my furlough is extended, which it very well might be, depending on the industry. I would look to do this again in the spring. For sure.
Thanks.
So I'll have to make sure I come back to Lincoln if that's the case.
Well, we'll have to let you know when the spring football game is, hopefully, and yeah, come back during that time.
Definitely.
Yeah, I feel like you have to come back now that you've said
I know.
So.
Right, when we can have in-person events again, we'll have to bring back Brandon. And I've also found from my conversations with him that he is a ranch lover. So we might just have to have a ranch off.
I know, and I didn't know that before I went to Runza either, that they have the best ranch ever. I just didn't know, and I didn't get it, and I just really need to have it now. So,
yeah, wait, you might get some pushback here.
Yeah, oh, there it is. There it is.
There we go.
Runza is a very close second. Like they're almost indistinguishable, but Amigos is better, just in case anybody was curious.
I also asked Brandon if he got the creamy garlic while he was at Laszlo's, and I don't think that he did. So we have lots of the other things to share with Brandon.
I'm such a dipper too. Like that's like the main reason why I get French fries, to get like 10 sauces to dip them in. So I didn't do it right. I got to come back.
So Brandon, if you're going to another place that has a Runza, while the ranch is great at Runza, you also have to get this French onion dip, and you can dip the sandwich, the frings, the rings, the fries, all of the things in the French onion dip. Very good.
Oh my God. I wish I had known that. I my friend that told me to go there did not tell me what to get. So,
Shame.
man.
These chats, you guys are hilarious.
I really don't think that they exist outside of Nebraska. I think that there's a ton of them in Nebraska. But as soon as I left the state and started telling people, nobody knew what I was talking about. You guys have a very well, you've kept that secret very, very well.
I think they have like one location in Kansas City on the Kansas side, and that's it. Wow. Maybe one in Colorado. Like
I was going to say, I think they have one in Colorado.
Yeah. In like Fort Morgan or somewhere really far east.
That's crazy to me. Like all on the East Coast, everything that we have is everything you would know. It's like all national chains. Like there's nothing secret that.
I wish we had, oh my gosh, I wish we had a Shake Shack, but.
Oh, okay.
We don't have one of those.
I'm originally from Philadelphia as well, and I miss Wawa's and Yingling.
There it is, the Wawa's.
Wawa. So Wawa, I understood Wawa to be the equivalent of Casey's there, where there's just like this very strong, like pride towards it. Everybody loves their Wawa. People dress up for like Halloween and like Wawa costumes and stuff. Like it's just that's a good comparison for sure.
Awesome. Well, I guess if we don't have any more questions, last call for questions. Anyone? Nope. Okay.
Brandon.
Yes. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you sharing your story and, letting us go a little bit viral on TikTok. But
it's my pleasure. Thank you guys so much. Thanks for having me. And hopefully I can be back in Lincoln soon.